Amit Pintambekar, it's lovely to be in your shop. It's a Nisa local, but I can see it's named after your dad, Ash's shop.
Yes.
Who established it back in the 80s.
Yes, back in the 80s.
And then you took over, I think, in 2017. So you've been doing this for nearly a decade.
Yeah, it's approaching a decade. I'm getting old.
Can I just compliment you, first of all, on how neat and tidy this shop is? A joy for somebody with my levels of OCD. Everything is immaculate. And I've also seen somebody buy a Telegraph in the last 5 minutes, which is encouraging. But we're in the sort of, like, I would say, middle class, middle England heartland. And yet you've been having this issue with shoplifting now, which is costing you, you say, around 12.5 grand a year, which is hugely significant. I'm shocked by that amount because although the turnover of this shop is more than £1 million a year, I just am looking at this leafy area thinking shoplifting can't be a problem here.
Yeah. In the last 2 to 3 years, we've seen a huge increase in basic shop theft. And this is products, meat, cheese, coffees, chocolate bars, surprisingly.
Yeah.
Get a lot of theft in chocolate bars.
And you've got your CCTV up here, so you're having to install proper security to keep an eye on this. Why do you think this problem has become much more prevalent in recent times? Because the Telegraph has done this polling with Public First. It's revealed that 76% of British adults think that shoplifting has become more widespread in recent years. What's your theory on it?
Certainly, we can see since COVID in the last 3 years, we've definitely seen a huge increase in shop theft.
What happened?
I think masking gave people an impetus to try certain things.
Having a mask on their face?
Yeah, because it was hiding people's descriptive, their facial, their face essentially. And certainly since COVID, people have become a bit more open to pushing the boundaries of the law.
Yes.
So I think that's kind of started the process, and people started to realise, especially the police weren't dealing with theft under £200. So essentially, they've got carte blanche up to a certain point that they know they could get away with.
Okay.
So you're getting targeted up to
And that £200 thing, that was a measure brought in by Theresa May in 2014, right? But then subsequently, Met Police Commissioner Sir Mark Rowley has rejected the idea that they're not going to investigate thefts below £200. What's your actual experience? Because I suppose £200 if you're at Boots or if you're at a department store isn't that much, but it's a lot to a shopkeeper like you, right?
Yeah, it's a huge amount. We're looking, our average customer might spend £12.
Yeah.
So £200 for us is a huge amount. My typical experience of reporting a crime is I'll have a reference number, no follow-up.
Wow.
No follow-up whatsoever, and it's a complete waste of time for us.
But the perception among the public as well, like on that polling, 56%, so more than half, feel the police are not taking it seriously enough. Do you think that this idea that the police aren't taking it seriously and that basically thieves has got license to steal up to 200 quid's worth of goods has fueled the epidemic?
Certainly. I'm a big believer that if you don't tackle low-level criminality, it just escalates and more people... It's almost like a cost-benefit analysis has been done.
Yeah.
And it's more effective to steal than it is to maybe burgle homes these days, or to do higher levels of what you'd call higher level of criminality.
Also, the cost to you, Amit, I mean, okay, 12.5 grand a year. I'm not for 1 minute suggesting that that isn't a significant amount of money. But can you just talk us through the actual impact on your business? Because you've done a few calculations yourself as to what it really costs.
I'm a bit sad like that, yeah. So we've done some forecasted numbers for this year. If we can't prevent the crime, and if it stays at this level or increases, we're going to have to increase our turnover by £238,000 just to cover the theft that we're having to deal with.
And how would you do that? So at the moment you're telling me that your turnover is, it's 1.8 million, so it's near 2 million. This is a really thriving shop. How on earth would you increase turnover?
We can't. We're going to have to basically reduce profitability of the business, basically. Yes. It's not possible to do that.
So basically you're saying that, I mean, it might be an obvious point, but if people thieve from this shop, you are personally losing money. Does it have an impact on how much you can pay staff, whether you can recruit staff? What impact does it have on you sort of personally as well as financially?
So we we're a family business, so we always put ourselves last.
Yeah.
We make sure our staff are always decently paid. We kind of try and wage match up to supermarkets. So that at the end of the day, my parents are both pensioners. I'm looking after them, so it kind of affects their ability to live a little bit if we have to make cutbacks. But it affects us day to day. It affects our ability to do stronger work in the community, essentially.
And when it comes to the people who are taking things, I was speaking to our crime editor, Martin Evans, before I came here, telling him I was coming here yesterday. And he was like, ask the shopkeeper whether he thinks that there's an organised element to this, because I think the police are increasingly witnessing shoplifting happening across different sites, coordinated by criminal gangs. So sending people out, often young people, to thieve, to order, to then send on and sell on.
Yeah, 100%. I definitely think you're getting what shoplifting to order or like listed shoplifting. So in different regions of the country, I know this is happening and going on. Gangs are recruiting people who are desperate and paying them a certain amount of money, giving them a huge shopping list and targeting 3 or 4 superstores. And they are stealing things that they can easily sell, like coffee, meat and cheese.
Yeah.
I think for us, we have a mix of that. We are getting people who are stealing alcohol, vapes, coffee. These are all products that are very easy to sell on in pubs or Facebook Marketplace these days, surprisingly.
Yeah. And then also, you're getting people stealing, do you think, as a result of cost of living as well? I mean, you do something really nice. You put away 100 quid a month so that if you're seeing anyone that's struggling, you say to them, look, please don't be tempted to steal. Can we help to subsidise your shop? We can help you. But presumably some people are stealing out of a degree of desperation or not. I'm not justifying it by any stretch of the imagination, but there is this narrative, particularly among the left, oh, well, mothers are stealing baby milk because they can't afford to feed their babies.
The baby milk issue, if you look into it, actually goes a bit more darker than that.
Right.
When you look at the gang elements and how they utilise that.
Yeah.
But we do lots of work with food banks, we do work with homeless groups. So there's loads of avenues for people for help.
Yes.
We are not seeing, the products we're seeing stolen are not desperation.
No.
They are not desperation. You're not desperate if you're stealing wine or vape. We're not seeing goods like bread being stolen. We're not seeing, well, we are seeing butter stolen. But
butter, I suppose, has gone up in price.
Butter's expensive,
I mean,
right?
also, as well as the post-COVID effect, is it also the food inflation effect?
Yeah. And
People are finding things too expensive and they're just nicking them because they feel they can get away with it.
Yeah, and it brings it back to that point about not dealing with lower level criminality, people knowing that they can push the boundaries of the law and get away with it.
Yeah. Can I ask you personally how you've been coping? Because we've got this other amazingly disturbing statistic from the British Retail Consortium saying that incidents of violence towards shopkeepers are up 50%. So 2 killer stats, 55,000 thefts per day in the UK, per day.
Yeah.
And then 2,000 violent attacks on shopkeepers a day. Have you experienced violence?
Yeah. And I think the statistic is every 43 seconds in retail it happens now.
What kind of violence have you encountered?
So last year we had a lady whose family were shoplifting from us. Typically they were stealing to order. She came into the morning with a hammer and threatened my morning team.
What?
The police, basically when we pressed our panic alarm, they false flagged the attack. They didn't acknowledge it as a real issue.
Right.
She then came in the following 2 weeks several times, threatening to attack me on the street.
Wow.
And when I reported to the police, and I said, if I see her on the street with a hammer, what do I do? And they said, can I preemptively stop her? They said, well, if she attacks you, let us know.
That's dreadful.
So they really trivial. To me, I lost a lot of faith in the system last
Yes.
year.
Are your staff regularly threatened?
Thankfully, not. We have a lot of verbal abuse.
Yeah.
Not from regulars, from out-of-towners, you know. A lot of our business is regular customers. So
Yes.
we're a very middle-class, rural village. Having issues like this is so uncommon for us to deal with. So when it happens, it hits you even harder because you're not used to it.
Also, is there a perception, the average shoplifter is you're kind of like teenage scrote, always getting into trouble? We've done some stories on the Telegraph suggesting that actually middle class shoplifting is a thing, not least with the introduction of self-pay checkouts and people just half-inching stuff because they can.
Yeah, there's definitely, I think, when you have self-service, people see it almost as a game.
Yeah.
As a game to, can I get away with stealing my Chantenay carrots and put it in as a value carrot, for example?
Yeah. Shall I reduce the number of bananas that I put on the scales? Fair enough.
Because, they've gamified the shopping experience. So I think people are trying to find ways to, that's expensive now. Food inflation is expensive. I'm having to pack my own bag. Why should I have to pay for everything?
Yes. But how about people stealing from here? I mean, are some of the thieves of a more middle class persuasion?
I think if you were to look at how class breakdown is, I think some of the people who are stealing we would cite as middle class.
Yeah.
But on the same hand, they are also saying they're struggling with the cost of living.
Yes.
So it's not just the everyday person who's struggling. You're also having middle class families struggling.
And the other thing that is contributing to your turnover issues, I think, is the budget. How have you been affected by Rachel Reeves's decision to increase employers' national insurance?
So the increase in itself is not a problem. It's the threshold changes.
Right.
So from 9,000 down to 5,000. So to me, this is a targeted attack on retail and hospitality.
Yeah.
We hire a lot of part-time workers, and a lot of these people are being clawed into NI changes. I think we're looking at £8,000 or £9,000 increase.
Yes.
So you add that.
It's not insignificant numbers, this, is it? You're running a small business here. You got 12.5 grand in shoplifting to make up for, and now you're adding another nearly 10 grand on by the budget. Do you sort of think that the government is slightly against you at the moment?
I don't think the government realise how hard it is to make money.
Yeah.
Especially in areas like retail and hospitality. Retail margins are very low. We're looking at maybe 6 or 7% net at the highest. So for every pound you make 7p. So where are we going to magic up £8,000?
No, good point. And also you're doing a public service here because you've got local people. I can see them all now working in the shop. The other thing is about a shop like this is it's a community service in itself, isn't it? I mean,
Yes,
you must know a lot of your regular customers by first names. I've seen quite a few elderly people come in here today. Might be the first and last interaction they have with somebody in the flesh today, right?
So independent convenience stores all over the country do the same magical work. They all know their customers by name. They're all embedded in their communities. They work with their local schools, sports teams. They do lots of great work, and it feels like we've just been pushed aside.
Yeah.
And concerns left adrift.
Maybe taken for granted a bit. This nation of shopkeepers, as Margaret Thatcher once described Britain.